what I'd like to do is an explanation of the importance of the digestive system, first of all, and second of all, how a person can develop a condition called leaky gut syndrome. Because I see close to 100% of my patients having some degree of leaky gut syndrome. And not only can this syndrome lead to interference with proper digestion, but it can lead to development of what in modern medicine is called autoimmune diseases. I personally and professionally do not believe that autoimmune diseases exist. I believe it's the immune system trying to do its job, but it's being given faulty data. And here's how. There's a few principles that you need to understand to get to the root of understanding this leaky gut syndrome. The first thing to understand is the general outline of how digestion takes place. So when you eat a piece of food, and I always use proteins as an example because all proteins, animal, vegetable, doesn't matter, are made up of chains of amino acids. And our digestive system is designed to break those amino acids from chains down into individual amino acids before it gets to the middle part of the small bowel, so that at that location you can absorb these amino acids into your what's called the portal circulation, which is a circulatory system that runs from the middle part of the small bowel right to the liver. And then the liver puts things back together in a fashion that your body can use. Whatever the foods are, that nutrition are that you need, your liver is responsible to construct those things. So your digestion starts with what's called mastication, which is the actual chewing process. And at the same time, you're secreting saliva into that food mass that you're mashing. Now, an interesting side note is that the instant you place a piece of food in your mouth, your stomach knows already what kind of food it is, and it starts manufacturing the enzymes or the acids or whatever needed to break down that particular food. So it starts instantly. So you chew your food, mix it with saliva, swallow it down. It goes down into your stomach, which has specific glands to make hydrochloric acid and what's called pepsin, which is another enzyme called gastrin, which are all made by the lining of the stomach that start to or continue the process of breaking down the food. In this case, we're talking about protein. Then the food passes out of the stomach into the small bowel, the upper part of the small bowel called the duodenum, where further enzymes come from the pancreas and also bile down from the liver into the food flow, and it moves further along by a process called peristalsis, which is progressive contraction of the muscle in the wall of the bowel to move food along. And by the time it gets to the middle part of the small bowel, called the jejunum, it theoretically is broken down into the individual components so that you can absorb them through the lining of the small bowel and send it up to the liver, like I said. That's the first process to understand. The second process to understand is that on the outside, with our skin, our protection is about 20 or 30 cells thick between the outer world and inside your body. That's your skin, dermis and epidermis it's called. But the thing to understand here is that lining gets progressively thinner and thinner to the point when it gets down to the lining of what's called the jejunum, the middle part of the small bowel. That lining is 1 cell thick. So in the process of you absorbing a food nutrient, now you have to realize also that standing at the gates, as it were, it has been said that roughly 80% of your immune system is in the bowel, in the gut, because At every given moment, your immune system has to decide, as that amino acid is transiting through one cell, your immune system has to decide, is this a friend or foe? Friend or foe, friend or foe, moment by moment by moment. If it's a friend, it gets passed on through, goes up to the liver, and you get nutrition. If it's determined to be a foe, the immune system will attack it as an invader. So the thing to understand here, the reason it's called leaky gut syndrome is that things, inappropriate things, leak into your bloodstream, not leaking out. So what happens is, if you have a chain of amino acids that is incompletely broken down into individual amino acids, normally with the healthy bowel, that chain of amino acids would not be allowed to be absorbed because it's not broken down properly. It would just pass on through. But with leaky gut, the cells normally have what's called tight junctions. They're up against each other very tightly. And what happens with leaky gut is you get loose junctions. It's due to damage to these cells. And I'll talk in a moment of about what might damage these cells. But when they're damaged, you get loose junctions such that these chains of amino acids can now absorb through the lining and into your bloodstream. And if the immune system decides that this is a foe or an enemy, because many invading infectious organisms have chains of amino acids on their cell membranes called antigens. And that's how the immune system determines if it's friend or foe. So if the immune system determines that this chain of amino acids that just got absorbed is an enemy, it will mount an attack to protect you by attacking that amino acid chain through various different mechanisms in the immune system. Now here's where the problem arises. If that chain of amino acids is similar to another chain of amino acids that's already in your body, such as an example would be in the cartilage in your joint, if there's a similar chain of amino acids to the improper one you just absorbed and the immune system decides to attack, it will simultaneously start attacking that chain in the cartilage in your joint, and you will develop what's called an inflammatory reaction. And if it's in the joint, medically it's called arthritis. Arthritis, by definition in Latin, means inflammation in the joint. And so that's the mechanism whereby leaky gut can cause a condition that is currently termed rheumatoid arthritis, which is viewed as being an autoimmune disease, where I believe it's the immune system trying to protect your body, but it's being given faulty data. And that's where the leaky gut can contribute to what we call disease or dis-ease.